Welcome back. The Pentagon's looking for cyber partners in the commercial world to harden cyber defenses for itself and for the defense industrial base. John Garstka is Director for Cyber Warfare in the Office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Platform and Weapon Portfolio Management in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. He says it's important to the department to work with critical infrastructure providers.
I know I talked to the National Guard Bureau just last week, talking about how we can work more closely with them. This is something that Cyber Command believes is really important. It's something that General Stanton's Cyber Defense Command is very focused on. But there's really a mixture between like what I call proactive activities, where you have to do cyber hardening internal to the company, and activities that that the department can do, because we can't be everywhere all the time. I think we're still in the process of figuring out the most important roles that we can play. We've done work with US Transcom, helping them understand the challenges that they might face operating in a contested cyberspace environment. We've identified important terrain that would need to be protected. The analogy that I like to use, if you think about the mischief in what I'd call kinetic space that happened in the Middle East with the Houthis going after commercial shipping with kinetic attacks. We know how to defend against those kind of attacks. The United States Navy, has done an amazing job of figuring out how to do that. We figured out how to use the joint force to go after the places where they were launching those attacks. But if we sort of, change the scenario to think about, okay, that same vessel would potentially be attacked in cyberspace. We are in the process of figuring out how to do that.
Yeah.
What would that defense look like? What are the right and left limits? And how willing are companies in the commercial sector to work with us to help close the cost equation, so that we can cyber harden that terrain, so that that we get left of boom and we figure out how to reduce the risk to force on key cyber terrain that we need to depend on.
The Navy was the first place that I heard the term that you used a few moments ago, cyber survivability. I'm not suggesting they coined it, but that's the first place I heard it. What's the definition of cyber survivability in your view from a warfare perspective in 2025?
Well, we have an official definition, which I'm not going to be able to recite on camera, but from my perspective, it is you have designed a platform to be resilient. Okay, when I think about the end state, I'll use a kinetic analogy. We developed the concept of stealth to improve the survivability of our kinetic platforms. And we designed systems from the bottom up so that they could be very, very hard to detect by radar. We have to figure out how to do that for our weapon systems. We have to figure out how to do that for, definitely critical infrastructure on our side of the fence. What I mean by that is you have to make a purposeful investment in deciding that on the worst day in cyberspace that you're going to be able to take a punch and keep on doing your mission. That may mean that you may lose some of your mission functionality, but your safety of flight is buttoned up. It may mean that, if you're building next generation systems, we have this concept called the Cyber Survivability Endorsement to the System Survivability KPP, which is for systems from the bottom up, have that. It's like, okay, you have metrics that you need to meet. It's much more challenging to deal with systems that are already deployed, and most of our systems are what we would call legacy systems. I mean, like if you continue the stealth analogy, you're not going to take an F-16 and make it a stealthy platform, all right? But you can take an F-16 and do hypothetically speaking, a cyber survivability block upgrade where you focus on, doing things to the 1553 buses, buttoning down your LRUs, aligning cyber defenders to that mission platform. So the technology exists to do this. We've done a set of what I call integrated sensing and monitoring experiments where we've demonstrated efficacy both on, for cybersecurity sensing and monitoring and cyber defense on OT cyber, operational technology cyber terrain. We recently did the same thing on a major weapon system out at Edwards, where we collected data on the effectiveness of employing these technologies. The really exciting thing about these edge computing capabilities is they're multifunction. You can use them to support cybersecurity. You can use them to help do predictive maintenance. You can help understand when you have incidents that are happening on your plane or a ground platform. You have the data that was moving over the bus that you can go look at. We have an example of an Air Force aircraft that had an in-flight incident with a fire on an engine, and they had data to figure out what had happened beforehand that wouldn't have been there otherwise. So the technology exists. One of my challenges is convincing people that we need to make the investment. But that's what makes the job challenging is figuring out, how to help us prepare for a highly contested environment. An analogy that I like to use is prior to World War II and the attack on Pearl Harbor, the commander of the fleets, Admiral Richardson, after the Royal Navy attack on Italian surface combatants at the Battle of Taranto, looked at the potential for torpedoes to be employed in Pearl Harbor and said, our torpedoes can't work in the depth of Pearl Harbor. And so an assumption was made that the Japanese couldn't develop torpedoes that would work in Pearl Harbor. And as a result of that, no torpedo nets were deployed. So one of the analogies that I use in my team is we're going to figure out how to deploy the torpedo nets in Pearl Harbor because we know that we're dealing with very determined and very capable nation-state level cyber adversaries, and we want to get in the way of their mission success.
You can read more about John Garstka's office and his team's work on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com.